Good afternoon. Okay, now that we've worked out a few kinks with the technology, we're ready to go. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Good. Well, what we want to do is spend some time this afternoon talking with you about the collaborative work that we've been involved with. But before we do that, we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Misha Turner, and I serve as the Associate Director of College Relations and the Center for Community College Student Engagement.
Good afternoon. I'm Jillian Kinzie from Indiana University Bloomington with the National Survey of Student Engagement. So this is actually one of the first times that Ceci and Nessie have been together in the same space. So we've done workshops and stuff with schools, but this is a nice little debut in a bigger arena. So thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. William Serrata, Service President of El Paso Community College.
Gary Edens, Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP.
Okay, so we just want to let you know that through the collaborative partnerships that we've developed, it's provided us with an opportunity to place a very high level of focus on our Latino students, and really with good cause. There are a few things that we do know about our Latino students, and that is that they start at the community college at a greater rate than the majority of our students, but yet, like many of our students, their goals that they set for themselves aren't keeping pace with their transfer and graduation rates, as evidenced by what we found in the National Center for Public Policy and Higher Education about the fact that very few Latino students complete transfer, and for those who do, only about 14% of those students actually earn their bachelor's degree or are still enrolled at the four-year institution after a 6-year period of time. So we're going to talk with you about the collaborative partnership that we've all developed together, and the partnership starting out with the Center for Community College Student Engagement as well as the National Survey of Student Engagement, but we always like to hear the voice of our students, okay? We like to hear about what they have to say, and so through some of the work that we've done on focus groups with students across the country, we've captured the voice of one student who tells his story about his journey toward completing a college degree. Okay, let's listen and see what he has to say. We call this James' story. We're going to have to see how this is going to work because this was going to play. Let's go back. We don't have sound. Okay. Well, we're not going to be able to hear what James has said. And someone has said just one moment about the video, but what James talked about was his journey of being in his first term and feeling really enthusiastic about that experience and feeling like he could complete. And then that was in September. By November, at the end of that term, he was not as enthusiastic. And so essentially, we lost James. Does that remind you of anything that you've heard or know about? What did you hear from that particular video in terms of what I just described? Yes? Okay, thank you. What else did you hear up front?
Very high expectations, and then I've seen videos of high expectations and excitement, expectations of what college would demand him, and his ability to meet it, and then sort of withdrawal as time went on, said it wasn't worth it.
We did hear that. Another comment at the very center there. Okay, maybe you answered the question there. So does this remind you of what you heard this morning from Carlos? Yes? How does that match? Do you see a theme? Uh-huh, sure. Yes. So where do you think we lose students in this process? Because as I mentioned, James started out in his first term in September, and so by November. So what happened between September and November? Sure. Family support was described on this end. What about, yes?
I see it differently. I think that a lot has to do with the culture of the institution and whether the institution was ready to receive the student and to serve the student's needs with all the challenges that they come with.
I like that observation because what are we hearing from that? Is that it's not all of what the student is or is not doing. It's some of the responsibility that the college bears for what kind of supports and what kind of resources we can provide students, and knowing how they're experiencing college in the early part of their experience, right here in the middle. Sure.
Maybe he didn't have an incorrect assumption of the workload, but just an inability and he needed help prioritize scheduling.
So again, some of the assistance and supports that could be in place within our own institutions to support the students, because students, as we know, aren't always well informed, right? So what we can say about this initiative is that this has been a grant-funded initiative. The Center for Community College Student Engagement received generous grant funding support from the Kresge Foundation and Greater Texas Foundation to really partner with NESE and also Excellencia in Higher Education. And for those of you who know, Excellencia in Education has been a leader in championing both educational policies and institutional practices that support Latino student achievement. So we were excited and thrilled to have them as a partner. But we were able to partner with these two areas to be able to work with 2-year and 4-year institutions, community colleges and universities, to be able to help those colleges look closely at their data and look at their processes that really do build support for our Latino students. And so through this work, we were able to, and we'll talk about this in just a little more detail, but we were able to work closely with colleges through the Student Success Institute. And that particular institute was an institute specifically focused on engaging Latino students, and it was held this past September, and it was a 2.5-day intensive hands-on institute that allowed colleges and universities alike to explore, review, and really take a look at their data. They were able to disaggregate all types of data, look at cohort tracking sets of data to be able to see some of the opportunities that they have, and also to build action plans that they can implement on their own campus. So we'll talk about this in a little more detail in terms of the Institute components, but the Institute did include sort of a pre-homework, is what we called it, pre-Institute advanced work, to where there was a whole data review, a cohort data review, as well as a completion of a portion of the short-term action plan. And that plan was worked on in a continued way throughout the whole entirety of the Institute. And then after the Institute, there were post-Institute activities. The colleges are currently writing progress reports. There was a progress report required, and we asked this of all the colleges and universities, at the 5-month mark as well as at the 10-month mark. So we wanted to be able to work closely with colleges to find out, what resources do they need, what are some of the key challenges, what are some of the other next steps that colleges and universities are looking forward to. Also, there was something we called a collaborative vignette, and all that simply is a description of an initiative or a program or some type of other area where the college and university both partnered together to build such a program or an initiative. And so we'll be able to collect those vignettes and publish them broadly, even on the center's website. We did place a high level of importance on who attended this institute. We called and invited leaders from a lot of different areas, presidents, chancellors, chief academic officers, student development officers, leaders from institutional research, as well as leaders from transfer and articulation areas. And we didn't want to exclude diversity and equity areas because we like to always bring in the diverse perspectives of what we know our students may be facing based on their different cultures, their different walks of life, and so we wanted to incorporate that into the discussion to where there was a broad cross perspective of ideas. I'm going to turn it over to Jillian now, and she's going to talk a little bit about who all participated and from where.
Thank you, Misha. So this was an interesting activity for us because it represented, as I said, the first time that 2-year and 4-year sectors got together to think specifically about student engagement and beyond. And we identified, in this case, 24 partner institutions, pairs of institutions, and this is where they're located. So pretty exclusively focused on 4 states, and probably no surprise given our emphasis on Latino students. We selected institutions or invited institutions from California and Texas and Florida, some great institutions that are really concentrated on Latino students' performance. And then there's Michigan, right? And then there's Michigan. So their work was very current, but also very forward-looking as they prepared for the shifting demographics in Michigan and to, of course, improve the success for Latino students that are currently in some major urban population areas. So it was quite an interesting project to work with these schools that had very long established activities and initiatives to support Latino students' success, but how do we bring the 2 and 4-year together to really try and foster and facilitate transfer success? So that was the objective. All right, and I didn't have the clicker. So a little bit more emphasis on what we did, because I think this is an important takeaway for all of you who I don't know, did we have any participants in the audience? So I thought I saw Mark come in. Oh, great, okay, so we have a few folks from, excellent. So those folks that just raised their hand were able to be there for the Institute. The rest of you were not, right? So it would be wonderful if we could repeat the Institute and do it for everybody and bring everybody with a partner. However, I think outside of that likelihood and possibility, which would be terrific, I think there are some things to take away from this work for all institutions. And one is this real focus on the Institute, and this will not be a surprise to anyone who's participated in Achieving the Dream, is the emphasis on data and using data about, in this case, inventorying policies and practices at our individual institutions first that support Latino student success and transfer, and beliefs about what they need to do in order, what students need to do in order to transfer and be successful in college. That was the first phase of our work, to really look at what are the policies, the practices, the beliefs, the culture that exist on our campuses regarding transfer and student success. And then the second phase of the data emphasis was really on analyzing a cohort of students to see what happened to those students and where did they go and what was their success rate, what did they look like. Can we look at it from first generation status? Can we examine it from different student demographic characteristics or programs? And then to layer on that, what do we know about the quality of their educational experience from SESI and NESI data? So it really layered on inventory of practices, specific information about the cohort and any characteristics about the cohort success, and then on top of that, what do we know about the culture of engagement at both the 2-year and the 4-year, and what might that suggest about Latino student success? So those are some things that if those data are available on your campus or with your partner institution, you could also examine. There was a lot of homework. People did a lot of work to prepare for this institute. So, the lesson here is it does require a lot of digging in on real information you have available to you in your own institutional research shops to really get the data and information you need about success patterns. We did a lot of, the second phase of that work was really to get together in teams, the teams that Misha illustrated earlier, to sit down and essentially hammer out, what are we doing? Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses in our both own campuses and in our transfer, the handoff? So that was the work of the Institute, and now we're doing the follow-up. So without further ado, I think the best way to really illustrate the value of this kind of partnership, the 2-year, 4-year partnership, is to invite our colleagues to share what happened through their partnership. So let me invite Bill and if you guys can come up and start your session. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jillian. Certainly my pleasure to be here and share some thoughts. I'm going to actually stand so I can see what I'm presenting, because then I'll be looking to the left and to the right too often. But it was, Dr. Romero is in the audience, and she was our coach during the session. Have you ever worked with Dr. Romero? Dr. Romero makes you work. And so it was a wonderful session in that we were challenged. And one of the things that I have to say at the forefront is that, we've had an incredible relationship. The University of Texas at El Paso and El Paso Community College have had an incredible relationship long before I moved to El Paso in 2012. Dr. Natalicio really set the tone for that. The president of UTEP set the tone for that. And we used to, when I worked in South Texas, we used to ask, and invite them down. And, well, how do you have such a great relationship? I remember Provost Jarvis said, well, Dr. Natalicio said, we will have a good relationship with the community college. And so it was done. And so I think that leadership obviously is a huge part of this. Dr. Rhodes, my predecessor, cultivated a wonderful relationship with UTEP. So part of my role was to enhance that relationship, ensure that I didn't screw that relationship up. And I've worked very diligently. It was one of the draws for me to move to El Paso from South Texas, was to get to work with the university and have a great relationship with that institution. And so we've built on that, and yet Dr. Romero still pushed us to do more, to push more and see where we still had leaks within that particular relationship and focusing on that. And so we see it, as a seamless partnership between EPCC and UTEP. We really do not see each other as competitors. I don't think we ever have. From our perspective, the competition is procrastination and apathy. We still don't see enough of our students, and this is what drives us in that particular relationship. As you see, we serve, well, it's hard for you to see because I can barely see it from here, about 827,000 people in El Paso, of which about 81.2% are Latino. And so that's the population that we're serving. We have 24% of our population that lives below the poverty level, as compared to 17% in the state of Texas. And we know that Texas isn't at the highest of that. And so we have work to do in the state as a whole, but much work to do in far west Texas. We earn on average 77 cents for every dollar earned in Texas and 75 cents for every dollar earned in the United States. And we see the educational attainment level of our particular region. We saw every July when the Census Bureau puts this data out, I look at it to see the progress we've made. This last July, I saw that we had a 2% increase in the population that held at least an associate's degree. And yet we saw a corresponding 2% increase in high school dropout rate. So there's much work to be done, but this facilitates the relationship that we have. We know that in order to increase the quality of life in our region, we have to work together to increase the educational attainment level of our region. A very quick who we serve from the fall of 2014. We serve about 28,300 credit students, another more than 10,000 non-credit students, so overall about 41,000 students, of which our population, we're overrepresented. If you look at the county, 85% of our student population is Latino, 57% female. Which we actually outperform the national average. I've seen it as bad as 62-38. There is that Latino, the black and brown boys crisis that we all need to work on. That's another session that we'll talk about. But 85% of our first-time in college students are on some type of financial aid, of which well over 90% is either Pell or scholarship. Again, that's reflective of who we serve and the demographics of who we serve. You see the other data with regards to still 7 out of 10 students are first-generation college students of our entering students. And so we're dealing with a population that is new to higher education. We have to work together to provide the supports that they need to be successful, always raising the bar in the classroom, but providing the support outside of the classroom that these students, in particular first-generation college students, don't have. We know, all of us know this data in this particular room. We know that the more you learn, the more you earn, and the less likely to be unemployed you are. It has driven our life's work and why we're in higher education. We know this is pertinent data. We share this data with our student body. Actually, this is the data I share with them because they want to know whether this investment is going to be worthwhile for them. These are averages. I understand that an AA in English is not going to earn what an ADN earns. We understand that, but by and large, the data is indisputable. And I'll still have people from Leadership El Paso will say, well, you're confusing correlation with causation. Those students would be they would have done well without college. No, they wouldn't. The data doesn't support. You're giving me an anecdote. I'm giving you the data. The data is really clear. We all understand this. We work very closely between the university, the college, and actually I'll describe some of the partnerships that we have that it goes well beyond the university and the college to ensure that we're moving our region forward. We monitor it at a national level, not just a state level. So right now, 61.5% of graduates, high school graduates in El Paso County go to college. Not EPCC, not UTEP, any college or university in the state. And I know our proximity to New Mexico, so I monitor that data, and it's about 200 students from Texas that go to New Mexico. So even if 150 are from El Paso, we're not moving this percentage where it needs to be. Yes, we exceed the state average, but our state average isn't amongst the national average, which is what we need to shoot for. We need to see that we're at 68% or higher of our high school graduates going to college. And remember, in Texas, as well as in many states, if you look at freshman classes in high school and you look at graduating classes 4 years later, we know that we lose about 40% of our students between freshman and senior year in high school. So we're just barely reaching about 30% of the market that we need to hit. It is a closed system. So Gary and I were discussing earlier, Dr. Edens and I, how much time we've both spent in Austin because it's a legislative session this year. And so we're spending an inordinate amount of time in Austin. Austin is about 600 miles from El Paso. It's a long way, so it's a nice flight for us, sometimes to Houston to go back to El Paso, but it is a long flight. But our system is very much a closed system. We understand that all of us have to work together to ensure success of this particular population. Those are 10 of the 12 school districts that we each work with, and that shows you the percentage of students that go to either EPCC or UTEP of that. In aggregate, well over 85% of students that go into higher education in our region either go to the university or the college. And so we understand that we have to work well together so that those students are successful regardless of which institution. And many times what we see as we share data is they swirl between institutions. So we're both committed to ensuring that those students are successful. So briefly, how? Dr. Natalicio created the El Paso Area College Readiness Consortium. It's now in its third decade of existence. It's 25 years old and has focused primarily on college readiness the first decade or so, and now we're really focused on college completion, and I'll share with you a specific area of what we're focused on, which we show facilitates college completion. It's comprised, Dr. Natalicio and I both sit on it, as well as the Big Three. I know that Detroit has their Big Three. We have our Big Three in El Paso, Socorro Independent School District, Isleta Independent School District, and El Paso Independent School District. So out of all of the students in K through 12, those three districts comprise 85% of all students in K through 12. They are very large school districts, 40,000 plus school districts, El Paso 60,000 plus. So we know if we get it right with those school districts, then we're going to impact the vast majority of our population. So we work diligently with them. The Chamber of Commerce is there. Now you're seeing that we're tying K through 12, the college, the university, and workforce. ADP is one of our largest employers in the region, and they all have a seat at the table for us all to look at data to see how successful students are enrolling in higher education, transferring, graduating from our respective institutions. Part of the approach for us is to demystify the process. We have a joint admissions application. Again, it is not there isn't competition. We did joint admissions applications before Texas said you all have to do Apply Texas, and now we do Apply Texas. But we share ID numbers within the respective student information systems, so that financial aid is an issue, whether they're going to one institution or the other. As this falls apart, I apologize. We work on financial aid initiatives together with the Chamber of Commerce to increase the number of students that are applying for and receiving financial aid. Finances is a huge barrier for all students, for Latino students in particular, and they are debt resistant. And so we need to ensure that we provide the vast majority of grant opportunities for the student population as much as possible. We share resources. Again, we have an MOU amongst the institution with the College of Education that we're going to share as many resources as we can. We share facilities. Again, this is us working together with our community to increase the educational attainment level so that we have a better quality of life in our respective community. We're getting ready to build our 6th campus at El Paso Community College. We have a very large military presence in El Paso. Fort Bliss serves over 30,000 soldiers with families. They're well over 100,000 strong population within the Fort Bliss parameters. We're building our 6th campus at Fort Bliss. UTEP will have a strong presence at our campus because we want to provide our soldiers with the same opportunity that we provide our community. And we're looking at not only UTEP, but K through 12 also being on there, an early college high school being there, so that we have an educational complex for the men and women in uniform as well as their families to provide all the way from pre-K through 16 and beyond. The state sometimes facilitates cooperation. House Bill 5, obviously not all of you are from Texas, House Bill 5 mandated that we have cooperation in that we then went into endorsements for high school students, and assessment was a large part of that, but we wanted to ensure that we were providing a skilled workforce as well for the residents of Texas. In particular, obviously, oil and gas is prices are way down, but it was booming for a good period of time, and we expect that to recover as well, and I'm sure you've seen prices have started to come back up. But as that booms, we need to make sure that we're providing that skilled workforce. And so what we did, we have 12 school districts, every superintendent, Dr. Natalicio and I all signed MOUs, memos of understanding, that this particular college readiness course, should a student pass it when they're seniors in high school, that we both deem them college ready. So again, there's no confusion on, well, you're college ready for the college, but you're not college ready for the university. We're on the same page with many of these respective initiatives. I saw Carolyn earlier. I don't see Carolyn in this session, but we're very thankful to the Kresge Foundation for providing a very robust grant for us to move forward with our students, but in particular with military students, for us to develop systems and move forward software systems to increase the success of our military students. Again, both of us working on this together. We've worked diligently to create a college-going culture to change that 61.5%. So our 6th campus at Fort Bliss is part of the master planning process that we're engaged in at El Paso Community College. We're planning for 2025. So what is the district going to look like in 2025, and what do we need to offer that? Well, I know it seems so far away, but my freshman class of 2025, they're in 2nd grade right now. They're already in the system. And if we're waiting till they're seniors in high school to recruit them, both of our institutions, we've waited too long. The data and literature shows that students as young as 2nd and 3rd grade are determining whether they will go to college, and yet we wait till they're seniors. So we're impacting them. The data is also very clear. Parental involvement specialists at the ISDs will tell you that in elementary school, they get 100% of parents to participate. By middle school, it drops to about 50%. In high school, they're lucky if they get 15 to 20% of the parents to participate. Who's the #1 influencer of students going to college? Parents. So if I go down to the elementary schools with our partners at the university, we have an opportunity to impact them at that level. Another one, we've done a couple of the school districts. Notice they're the large school districts because we're looking for the largest return on our investment. The next one will be with Isleta, and then we'll go to the other districts from there. Another area of our partnerships that has been absolutely key, and what makes our early college high schools, quite frankly, unique to any other early college high schools in the state and nation. We have 7 very successful early college high schools. We're opening our 8th in fall with Socorro, a school within a school model. So this shows you when you raise expectations and when you work with your partner how students can do. Our Mission Early College High School students, 92% of them graduate early. They finish an associate's degree at the end of their junior year, no later than the end of their first semester in their senior year. So what do they do after that? They're juniors at UTEP, taking courses while they're in high school from the university to receive credit as juniors at the university. So another way that we have worked diligently, and again, we've worked with philanthropy to provide scholarships for those students to take those courses as as seniors in high school, corresponding to juniors at the university. We've seen this population continue to rise and outperform. Well over 80% of our early college high school students receive their associate's degrees before they graduate from high school. We've seen well over 1,200 graduates. They have that first class for mission that was in 2006, are working on doctorates, medical school, and beyond. And the university now has established individual orientations for this particular student group because it's such a large part of their junior class coming in. They're actually considered FTICs at the university, but they understand that they're transfer students as well. I covered the early college high school, and you'll see how well they do. They had a 3.08 GPA, so we measure our success based on the success of that student at the university. So how well are they doing once they transfer to the university? And again, 3.08 is a significant GPA that we're obviously happy with. Part of the collaboration has been highlighted at the national level. Secretary Duncan, during his 2013 education tour, his only stop in Texas was in El Paso at the collaboration of our Trans Mountain Early College High School, which is a T-STEM early college high school in partnership with UTEP. And so we see the Secretary Duncan tweeted, fantastic collaboration between El Paso Community College, UTEP, and high school to create new worlds of opportunity for students. Yeah, this aging thing and needing glasses is no good for me. Yeah. Dual credit is what we are focused on in the collaborative now. So we're beyond focusing on college readiness. We're focusing on dual credit for a very specific reason. We've seen our dual credit population increase. We had a slight, in 2014, it came down slightly. Those are due to retirements of teachers that had the credentials to teach dual credit. But you see that we serve, this is separate and apart from our early college high schools. So this is what we're focused on in the collaborative, increasing the amount of teachers in our ISDs that have the credentials to teach dual credit. Why? Because the data is overwhelming. This is state data. It's the last time the state produced the data in this fashion. Right when it works, they stop producing it. And in 2000, the high school graduating class of 2004, how were they performing 5 years later if they had dual credit? As you see, if they had between 1 and 11 credit hours of dual credit, they had, that's an N of almost 16,300. This is a significant number. Their persistence rate, their freshman to sophomore year in college was over 88%. 5 years later, almost 50% of them had baccalaureate degrees. Well over 55% had at least an associate degree. So that's as little as 1 to 4 classes. House Bill 1 passed in 2006 in Texas that said that they should all have access to at least 12 hours of dual credit or AP courses. If they jump between 12 and 30 credit hours, again, a significant N of over 8,200 students, persistence rate is now over 90%. 58% of them have a baccalaureate degree 5 years later. That's UT Austin's graduation rate. 58%, the flagship, and I'm a two-time Aggie. The flagship's four-year graduation rate is 58%. These students achieve that regardless, and they're not only going to UTEP, these are students that are going throughout the state of Texas. Almost 64% of them have at least an associate's degree. And then the small N of 31 plus, these are early college high school students. We had just started the early college high school program in Texas back then. That's a very small N, but you see how dramatically that increases. Now, if we want to increase the educational attainment level of our region, the data is indisputable. I don't believe in silver bullets, but this is without a doubt a part of the silver buckshot. And so this is something that we're very clearly focused on, and this is how we're doing it. We're looking at increasing the number of dual credit teachers at the ISDs by the university offering those courses on our campuses, the school districts contributing, and now we just had a nonprofit in our region contribute $1 million to help teachers get master's degrees and credentials. No interest loans or grants for them to get these credentials. Again, the data just shows that it's indisputable on how successful. In addition, so one of the competition points that would be there is, well, what if the student transfers before they graduate from the community college? And that happens all the time. So we work very diligently together. They hit 60 hours or 66 hours, and what happens? The university sends their transcript back to the college. We evaluate their transcript to see if they have met the requirements for an associate's degree, and we award the associate's degree that they earned. We have now nearly 5,000 students that have received associate's degrees through reverse transfer between UTEP and EPCC. So I know it's vogue now. Everyone's talking about reverse transfer. Long before I got to El Paso, they had already created it. And it's working very, very well. We've been laser focused on completion at the college as well as at the university. You see that in the last decade, our enrollments increased about 15%. But the number of degrees and certificates awarded has increased almost 200%. We broke 5,000 certificates and associate's degrees this year for the first time, which was an increase of 600 from last year. So again, a clear focus on completion. That is our ultimate goal, to take those kids that start out and they're in our elementary school adoption program. They're our freshman class of 2025, and we hope that 2 to 3 years later, they're walking across the stage to receive their associate's degree and transfer on to the university. Part of the job of a president is to brag about their institution. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I think it's the 7th year in a row that we've been ranked first amongst community colleges in awarding associate degrees to Latino students in the nation. Community College Week has the same recognition for us. And then, of course, we're one of the top finalists for the Aspen Prize this year. And with that, I will turn it over to my great colleague, Dr. Gary Edens.
Thank you, Dr. Serrata, and welcome everyone. I'm going to go off script for the rest of the presentation. I'm very sensitive to time, and I think we only have about 10 minutes, and I want to make sure we open up for questions because I think that's where the best dialogue comes from. I'm Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Texas at El Paso. I've been there 31 years right now, as of this month, actually, I believe. And the relationship between UTEP and EPC that Dr. Serrata so well, eloquently and very well demonstrated has been going on for quite some time. But why we do it, I think, is really important. And I want to show you this slide, because this is really why I think all of us are in this room today. When you look at this data, it's telling. So what this is family income by quartiles. Your red is the lowest quartile, the bottom quartile. Your blue is the highest quartile. And when we saw this data several years ago, it was shocking for a number of reasons. First off, you can see that since the 1970s, there's been some nice gain in the top quartile, rising from 36.8% getting a college degree to 69.4%. Great stuff for those in the highest income level. But then look at that lowest income level. Very little movement from 6.6% in 1970 to only 8.7%. So with all the efforts that we've been putting in place over the last several decades, we're still not seeing the impact on those bottom quartiles of family income that we would like to see. That's truly problematic for a city like El Paso, which has some of the lowest zip code family income per capita, low wages, those kinds of issues that El Paso is facing. So we really wanted to tackle this issue. And the Institute has allowed us to do that through the use of data. And I want to reiterate a couple things that Dr. Serrata has mentioned so that it's burned into your mind. First is the use of data and the use of homework before the Institute. How many of you get stacks of reports, survey data, NESI data, SESI data, and they sit on your desk, but you don't really have the ability to dig into them? The Institute allowed us to do that, where we were able to identify factors that we wanted to impact, what we wanted to change, that we felt could have an impact on, investments and on effort. And so we use data a lot, and I'm going to show you some of the results in just a second. The first was data. The second is collaboration. Collaboration has been key to what we've been doing at both UTEP and El Paso Community College. At UTEP, we have a mission, a vision, a life's purpose, and that is what we call access and excellence. We want to be, and are well on our way to being, a top-tier research institution. That's the excellence side. But what we don't want to do as we go for a top-tier research institution is get away from our commitment to access. Most institutions will give up that commitment to access. They'll raise standards, they'll focus on SAT scores, they'll focus on only certain populations of students to recruit. We're not going to do that because we feel a commitment to our region and to access. And so what we try to do is this balance. And what we did at the Institute is focus on the one component of that vision, access. Our excellence is well on its way. We're bringing in record number of research dollars. We've got top quality faculty that are happening. Tons of facilities are being built on our campus for the excellence side. But we wanted to focus on access as well, and that's what the Institute allowed us to do. When we look at access, what we're talking about is pre-college preparation, developmental education, remedial education. How do we improve those numbers? We felt for many decades that our numbers were too high in those areas. Financial aid and scholarships is critical for Latino students. Academic and career advising, as you all know, is important. Our degree program options, what are we providing our students as far as academic opportunities? And last but not least, how are we providing the learning opportunities for them? Are we giving them online options? Are we giving them night courses? Are we giving them weekend courses so that they can fit those needs into their busy work schedules, their family schedules? Dr. Serrata talked about the collaborative. I'll go through this really quickly. This was a critical part of this process because the second thing I want you to think about and take out of this is the word trust. You have to have trust within your partners. And I joke a lot of times that I spend more time at El Paso Community College than I do at UTEP. And it's really true because there's a constant communication and trust that is happening between the both institutions. It's not easy to have shared student information numbers. It's just not. It doesn't just happen like that. It's not easy to have degree mapping that's in sync. It's not easy to collaborate on some of these things. But if you've built trust over the years, you've got strong visionary leadership, which we do in Dr. Serrata and Dr. Natalicio, great things can happen if you stay true to the course. And the collaborative has allowed us to do that. Now, it's not just Dr. Natalicio and Dr. Serrata, because people come and go. You want to build the infrastructure so that it will weather the storm no matter who leaves or what happens. So now let me give you some of the results, and then we'll open it up for questions. What we've seen through this work is increases in Region 19 is our educational area in Texas. They divide them into regions, so this is our region. The students' performance on math developmental tests. You can see over on this side, sorry, that room. I don't know how to do 2 slides. But in 1993, we were very low. The blue line is Hispanic, Latino students. The middle line is white students, if you can't see that. Number one, you want to look at the disparity between Hispanics and the white population, or between African Americans, or the total. I'm sorry, that's the total. Next slide will be African Americans. But the disparity. Now look at 2013. We've narrowed the disparity and increased performance. I'm going to go through these very fast. These are all the 20 regions in Texas. We're the 19th. Our students' population taking an AP and recommended high school programs, we're the highest in the state. That is because of the collaboration, saying that all students in high school will be in these recommended and high school recommended programs. Our high school graduations are improving. You'll see the regions, Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. We're right up there with all the other large areas of the state, but also look at the disparity between the different ethnic groups. The one in El Paso, much narrower than the ones in the other areas. Of course, I've talked about the economically disadvantaged population that we serve. We have one of the highest, so we're doing all of this with students who many write off as not being ready or able. At the university level, we don't do it for our own benefit, we do it for the students, but what we are seeing is a great benefit for those students. In just 2003, 10 years ago, we had about 28.5% be college ready in math. Now we're at 88.1%. We had 82.4% in college ready for writing, a little bit of an improvement there. and a little bit of improvement in reading as well. So because of the collaboration between the districts, the community college, and UTEP, we're seeing improvements in student success and then ultimately in graduation. And all of this is done because we dig into the data. When the collaborative meets, that's again the president of the university, the president of the community college, our superintendents at our large districts, fellow business community leaders, they don't talk about theory, they don't talk about student programs, they literally look at data and identify areas that need work. I'm going to skip this. Dr. Serrata went over generally what El Paso was. At the University of Texas at El Paso, we're a large university at 23,000. We're majority Hispanic. One thing that's telling is we have the lowest net price for any student in Texas and, in fact, the country at a research institution. So the number of research institutions that have a lower cost per student than us is 0%. We're by far the lowest. So we still have that access mission that we're taking so seriously. What's it mean for transfer student trends, which is what this is all about, is how do we get more students to transfer to the four-year institution and then ultimately succeed. You can see the growth from 2003 to 2013. That's both from El Paso Community College and from other institutions, but the vast majority are from El Paso Community College. And then, of course, we want them to graduate. So the number of students who graduate from UTEP with some form of transfer credit. It can be they brought the transfer credit in and then stayed at UTEP. It could be they came to UTEP and then went to transfer to El Paso Community College and came back. It can be a variety of ways, has also increased. And then, of course, in Texas, enrollment's only as good as you're getting them out in 4 years. And you can see that we are increasing the number of degrees we're awarding as well. So our transfer students are coming and succeeding. I want to stop there because I've shown you, I think, enough to share the story and to say something's going on in El Paso. I hope you at least got that part. Something's good is going on in El Paso. Now, what we can do is get really specific. I've told you a couple of the things that I think are most important, one being collaboration. And you have a choice in any type of partnership to be competitive or to be collaborative. We could very easily sit at the university and say, for every student that Dr. Serrata enrolls, it's one less freshman at my campus. It's one less tuition check that's coming into my bank. But we don't work that way. Our population and the students we serve need better. It's not about collaboration for them, it's about getting that degree. And so we've identified very early on that it's not going to be a competitive environment, it's going to be a collaborative environment, and we work every day on that. It's not simple, but if you have trust and you keep working on it, it can happen. The use of data takes out some of that emotion. If the data is there on the paper, and this is what we spent 2.5 days in San Antonio doing, if the data is there, then you take emotion and feeling out of the discussion and you focus on what really is happening. What we were finding was that even though with these successes, we still have too many roadblocks we put up in front of students, we still have a lack of communication that we'd like to enhance even more between the institutions. For example, I'll give you an example. We don't tell the community college which students ultimately transfer. You know, we have all their applications come in, but we don't communicate back, okay, these are the 62% of the students that transferred, so that they can then see, okay, these are the students that have gone on to get their degree or not. So we've identified ways to share data that we thought we were doing, but we really weren't. And then raising expectations. What we've really, and I think this is what early college, high school, and reverse transfer and a number of these programs has done, is that if we raise the expectations of our students in our community, they will meet those. And what we continue to try to do is put programs and opportunities in front of our students to succeed, and invariably they do with appropriate support structures and with if we're doing everything we can to remove roadblocks, dead ends, and barriers. And so raising those expectations has been really important. We've been asked to talk to you a little bit about what has come since our meeting in September. So I want to touch base on that a little bit because we got together in September, looked at this data, made some plans, put together an action report. Our facilitator actually is here in the room, as was mentioned earlier. And we've had some exciting things happen. First, at the institution, at my institution, UTEP, we realized very quickly that we weren't organized for efficiency and for ease of communication between the institutions. So we've completely reorganized our Enrollment Services Center, our Enrollment Services Division, and have made some structural organizational changes within the institution to better enable us to communicate with our colleagues at El Paso Community College. We saw some redundancies, and we wanted to get rid of those. We've also seen, because of the support and growth in some of this data, some private interest come in, because private-public partnerships are really the way to go. So because of the successes of the reverse transfer program, for example, we've had a group of community leaders pledge $400,000 to train high school teachers to get their degrees, their master's degrees, so that they can then teach dual credit. What we were finding, is what Dr. Serrata has found, is that lots of our students want to participate in these dual credit programs, but we don't have the instructors to be able to teach those courses. And so we've had to increase the number of instructors, and we have $400,000 in scholarships now to provide that support and training. So great things are happening after this institute because of the identification of issues and roadblocks that we wanted to take care of, and the growth and opportunities that, knowing the partnership that we both had, we could impact and improve upon. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. I've gone through these very fast, I realize that, but I think you've gotten the genesis of what not only the Institute has done, but what the two institutions have done. And the CESI data and the NESI data have been instrumental in this. In fact, we are in the process at our institution of doing strategic planning for our next 5 years, and we're using the high impact practices that NESI has identified for us as an institution to build support structures and activities and programming that will impact our students' success at the institution. So we use that data quite a bit. Questions? Yes. You know, and what we found, number one, and most of you will see this, and I can give you more information. You can go on our website, or I'll be happy to send it to you, is that many students in high school do not take math their senior year. Then we test them, in Texas at least, in order to place them into college. So they may be college ready, but they may not be ready for college level math. They could be placed in something else. What we were finding was that with a little bit of a refresher, and what we do is during orientation, we do 6 hours of refresher. 2 hours Monday, 2 hours Tuesday, 2 hours Wednesday, where if they have not placed into college level math, we have them go through this 6-hour refresher, retest them free of charge, and see if there's been improvement. Huge levels of improvement with just a refresher type of math experience during their summer orientation. Students know the information, but they haven't taken it in 10 months or 12 months or 15 months. And so that summer bridge program, math program, has been extremely beneficial. What we've also done is give that data to the superintendents. We were experiencing this data real time. We were seeing the numbers of students who were coming to us with low math placement. What we weren't doing was communicating it to those people that really could impact it at an earlier stage. So because of the collaborative, they were looking at this data, they were identifying what students were being placed into, and superintendents then took some of the responsibility and said, we're going to help build programming and initiatives at the high school level to support that transition. And so with their involvement now, we're able to identify students. In fact, we test students in the junior year now, identify where they are in placement. If they are not in college level math, then the senior year of their high school, they're doing interventions to then prepare them for college level math. So that sounds logical, right? Makes sense, but it's not easy to do. And you have to, again, have the communication, have the trust that's been built up over the many years, gone through many superintendents, and then look at what the impact has been so that you can keep the program going forward. And we're very, very happy with the math expectations.
My understanding of the way the state four-year institution is funded is that the large class sizes in the 2 freshman sophomore years kind of cover some of the money that's used to run the higher level classes in the smaller start teacher ratio. Knowing that you lose that chunk of revenue, how do you make adjustments at your institution to allow students to do this transition to revenue?
I don't think we even get any money from the state anymore. Inside joke. It's inside the joke. I mean, I think we're down to like the teens as far as state support. So we don't run based on our state funding. The reality is you get more state funding for doctoral programs and graduate programs than undergraduate programs. So we've built up, as you can see in the excellent side, our doctoral and graduate programs. That helps buffer us a bit with undergraduate programs. And that could be an issue if you're looking at it as strictly a dollar sign. But we really don't. We really look at it as what's the impact of the student. And the reality is if the student can succeed at that freshman level course, then I get 3 to 4 years of tuition money after that. If the student fails in their freshman course, then I lose that student and that tuition revenue completely. And so you have to take a bit of you have to roll the dice a bit and take a bit of a chance. But the reality is if you're impacting that student and helping them transition effectively and be successful their first year, you're going to keep them through to graduation, bringing in extra money. And the unintended benefit of programs like the Early College High School program, where these students are now coming in as juniors, is that they're staying for graduate school, which means more money for the university. We never really built the program for that purpose, but what we're finding is that when you raise those expectations, you're successful in transitioning the student into the college level, that experience is positive, then they're going to continue on to graduate and even doctoral programs. And so the balance of funds has been not really an issue for the university. Now, it's a huge investment for the community college, and I'll let Dr. Serrata talk about this, because those early college high school programs are being covered basically by the community college. The students are not paying for those, so I don't know if you want to touch base a little bit on what that means, or...
A couple of things. The university has grown during this period of time as well. I think you've seen it's been 10, 12 years of growth. So we see the increase in the transfer students, and the data is very clear nationally that if a student receives the associate's degree, their success at the university is far larger than the native student that started at the university. So they're getting a better qualified student that's going to graduate. With regards to the early college high schools, we waive tuition for those students completely. We do receive a little bit of state funding for the contact hour reimbursement for those, but what happens also is that the district is committed to hiring the highly qualified teachers that have the master's degrees. So we're not having to pay that particular area. They have the faculty. We're not in it to make money, but we break even with the early college high schools. And then the milestones that those students meet. So now Texas, at least at the community college, is in a performance-based funding mechanism. 10% of our funding is based on reaching milestone student success points, and the data from dual credit and early college high school students count in those milestones as well.
I'm sorry, we've exceeded our time. Oh my gosh. Please come up, we'll chat with you. Thank you so much to Dr. Serrata and Gary Edens. Thank you. Really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.